Hello everybody and welcome to Advanced Digital Cinematography Masterclass Week 4, Camera Movement Techniques. Just had a bit of a setup, so we're just starting a few minutes later, but we got lots of fun information and some really cool insight. We're going to look at some concepts and ideas and things we can do with camera movement. So yeah, thanks again for joining us. If you're here, you have access to all of the past 3 sessions as well, plus this session. So remember these links will be archived. You can keep accessing them and rewatching them and going through these concepts. And I really encourage you to try some of these ideas out. A lot of it is really cost effective. You can access all the equipment through our library partners. And on that note, I want to thank all our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts. We also have our library partners, so Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. So remember, you can take out the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, the whole kit, from the Blue Mountains Public Library and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. So that's all available there. Lights, the bounce, the reflector that we talked about in the last week as well with the exteriors. All of that you can access. Now, some of the stuff we'll look at today, the camera movement is you can do with tripods, you can do with with different kind of DIY, so do-it-yourself ideas of what you can do. So this isn't available necessarily through libraries, but it's things that you could think about how to make it, make your own things. DIY on the DIY side. A lot of stuff, think about, skateboards can be dollies. You can sit on rolling chairs. You can use monopods. You can go handheld. You can look at stabilizers. So we'll introduce that as well. Stabilizer, Steadicam, these kinds of ideas. Like there's the different shots and what they mean and how they work. So and that's the really cool thing. So we're going to look at this camera movement, particularly kind of the pan, tilt, dolly combination, the really beautiful triple threat, if you will. That's what we'll be looking at today. So let's just have a little bit of an overview. So we'll look at camera tripod movement, pan and tilt combinations, and dolly or tracking shot, crane and jib movements, handheld traveling shots, stabilizer and Steadicam movement, and what those mean and how those can work. So again, a lot of things you can achieve with DIY and handheld, I think is underestimated. And that's why I wanted to include that in the camera movement. We forget that we can just take this camera and do handheld movements with it, and it can be quite effective and quite good. And we'll look at just kind of the differences between wider lenses and longer lenses and what can work the best. So, okay, so let's look at camera tripod movement. How does this work? So in terms of the setup, so I have this nice little setup here. Not a lot of light, and I think this will help to kind of show us what's going on in terms of the image and so on. Maybe I'll just go a little bit brighter here for you guys. Let's go to ISO 800 there. So I just want to so we can see everything nicely. So here's this shot. So in terms of the setup, so this is on a rail system on a little bit of a skateboard type dolly. So just regular conduit, electrical conduit, and then it's on a tripod head that you can mount. And a lot of this stuff you can just simply mount with different screws and make it work in that manner. So it could be really cost effective in how do you make this work with just pipes you can buy at a hardware store. These are inline skate wheels attached to what's called a cheese plate. This could be a piece of wood, and you're attaching a tripod head. And these are 1/4 inch screws, so you can put those kinds of screws in. And we'll look at some of the inner workings of this as we go too. Okay, so let's look at the pan and tilt. So we talked about this first week, but so the whole idea of a pan and tilt. So being able to pan and tilt. So this combination is really nice. And this is really classic. This is I could be doing this with a tripod, right? So this is a tripod head or doing a pan and tilt. Okay. So that's usually referred to as an X and Y movement if you're getting into, motion control or that kind of idea. So X and Y, right? So that idea. Now look at this. When I can start moving this on the rail. So now we're bringing in a dolly shot. So I can go around across the subject, and this is that real cinematic look as we get into a dolly shot. Right, so I can have my gnomes totally off frame, and I can travel by them on the dolly shot. So think about how cool this is, just for like an establishing shot or anything like that, where I'm going to establish the characters, right? And the reason it's on the rails is, and we'll look at the difference between like a handheld shot and this shot, is it's quite smooth. So rails, it's like a train track. And the rails really make it smooth. So let's see what I'm doing. So this is all I'm doing. I'm just rolling it across from here all the way across here, right? And that's it. So I'm not using any of this. So now, because I have a tripod head here, I can make this triple combination. So there's pan, tilt, plus I can dolly. So traditionally dolly shots are going left and right. So people can be walking with the dolly. I can be going around someone, right? But we can also position the dolly going into someone, right? So we can also flip it around, and we'll do that after, is going into the person or into the gnomes as well. So that's the other idea. So now look at this combination. I'm going to do like a pan and tilt. So now as I go around, first I'll just start with a pan. So what I'll do is I'm gonna just pan around. So I stay on the subject, but I'm still changing those perspectives. It looks like I'm kind of floating around them. And it's a beautiful dolly type move. So this is the dolly move. So I'm doing so X, Y, again, is the pan tilt. And then the Z is the actual track or dolly movement. So I can do a pan while I do the dolly movement, and it gives me this really interesting magical look like that. Let's see what this looks like in terms of right now with the camera. So this is what it looks like when I'm doing it. So I'm moving this, and then I'm panning. See, I'm panning the head around, right? So I'm basically, so if I'm still, this is what all I'm doing. I'm just doing a pan. So like this, just gently with my finger to keep the subject in center of the frame, right? So that's that idea. Now I can also add a pan and tilt combination, and then that's that triple thread I like to call in terms of what the shot will look like. So check this out now. So if I go like this, I can tilt down, pan, and continue to pan around them like that. And that gives us such a cinematic, unique type of shot. So that's the pan, tilt, track, or dolly combo. X, Y, and Z. Z being the dolly move, right? So isn't that such a cool move? What is that? Again, so I can also I can start like tilt. I can tilt up. And then pan around to keep them in center, right? I can also tilt up. And sorry, the cable got in the way. Let's do that again. Tilt up and pan and keep tilting up. So you can totally get out of the frame, right? So really fun ways we can do that in the pan tilt combination. So again, I'm using pan and tilt, which is a great combination. I really, urge everyone should take out a tripod, put the camera on the tripod, and practice pan and tilts. They're often underestimated for what they can do. Then practice that. Then you can build some sort of a skateboard dolly, and then you can mount a tripod head to it. Right, but even just the dolly move on its own is quite nice. So how do we make that happen? So I'm just gonna show. There's basically tripods have this 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch, depending on the tripod, right? So you just basically need some sort of a thread to go through like a piece of wood that can connect to the bottom. In this case, this is the tripod head right here, right? So you need something that you can screw into the tripod head. And voila, you mount this tripod with a nice big screw. And here we go, we mount it back on. Nice and tight. And then because it's a fluid head, I'm able to do the pans left, right, and I can also do a tilt. And then I have my dolly move as well, right? So it could be really that simple. And that's the great thing. So, what other kind of combinations are there? So that seems, maybe that's too much work. You don't want to do the pipes and all of that. So in that case, there's also combinations that you can do, and these you can purchase a lot of these things online. And what you can do is you can get things like this. So this is a specific company. I don't even know if they exist. I think there's a lot of copied kind of information on this, but check this out. So just inline skate wheels on just a little platform, and then you can spin them, right? And then you just attach, this came with like a little arm. You can attach the camera to it with a, like right on the bottom of it through a plate like so. Attach the camera to it. And then this simply can just travel on a table, right? So you don't even need to have the pipes and everything. You can have something like this just traveling on a table, going across, and you can get your dolly shots and move around with the camera in that manner. So you can go as simple as putting this on a dolly shot. Make a dolly shot by putting this kind of a skate, literally like a skateboard, onto a table, or you can get a piece of wood, and you can see you'd probably just need a 6-inch or 15 centimeter kind of wide piece of wood, putting on a piece of wood. And then, just traveling across, and you can get really beautiful shots. I've tried this out on concrete floors, anything that's smooth, hardwood floors, it can work really nicely. And on tables, it's beautiful because you can use it to do different moves towards, products, or to do like close-ups and things like that. So that could work really nicely. In terms of the lens that I've just been demoing with, it's a 16 millimeter lens. And we have an ISO of 800. And again, I'm not worried about lighting today. This is more of the camera movement. So I'm not saying this is necessarily amazing lighting. It's more of a really simple one light with some background light there. But that is what we're doing. So, you can put a longer lens on this and it can work as well. So now let's look at, we can do also the other kind of move, which is to go into towards the subject, right? So we can kind of flip this around. So what I'll do is I'm going to take this stand and spin it this way, and spin it a little bit more, just to get it all the way across. Okay, and then I'm going to just move that over here, and let's get this stand up and around. There we go. Okay, so now, so you can see I can position it that it goes like towards the subject. So I'm going on a bit of a diagonal, because if I had it right pointing at the subject, you would see the track. But this way, as I spin around, I can work around not seeing the track. Now what we've got to remember is, because we're moving towards something, right? Now we're going from like here to here, we have to also now consider our focus pulling. And that's something we covered in the first session, is adjusting focus as a subject goes nearer to the camera. We have to do what's called focus pulling. So we have to adjust our our focus. So here we go, here's our shot. And now here's just I'm not gonna worry about the focus or anything, but just to give an idea of like, here's the shot. Now I can move towards the subject. So I'm not just going around the subject, now I'm moving towards the subject, right? On a bit of a diagonal, but we can fix that with a pen and a tilt as well. So you can see it's kind of, it slowly gets into focus, right? Or what we have to do is then do our focus pulling. So I'm just adjusting the focus to keep them in focus as I get closer to them, right? So that keeps our shot in focus as I dolly into them, right? So that's that movement in. You know, again, what does that look like, right? Just here's kind of the behind the scenes look. So I can be way out there, right? And then I'm dollying towards the subjects on the table. Again, this could be someone just sitting, standing, and we can adjust this kind of a dolly, this kind of a pipe dolly up or down. And, you know, traditionally it would be used to seeing maybe these large, huge dollies and, you know, working with something, but this way it's a bit, this is a bit more compact. Again, DIY. I can be on another table with that skateboard dolly that I showed you guys before. So this is our dolly type move. So moving towards, and I can also move away. So we could be doing like what's called a reveal shot. So I could be, you know, in focus, and I can pull out. Oops, I'm on the wrong ring there. I can be in focus, and I can pull out of the shot to show us where we are. And that's called like a reveal, by pulling out with the dolly, or tracking out and revealing our subject that way, right? So that's a really cool option there as well. I'm just gonna swap a battery out here on this camera. So yeah, always, you know, with any kind of cinematography, make sure you always have lots of nice fresh charged batteries, so you can just quickly swap and be ready to go. I had this on for a bit, so and then, you know, in terms of checking your batteries, you can just tap on the battery icon. It'll tell you your voltage or percentage. So now I got 97%, for example, which is great. Okay, so again, let's look at that shot. So if I'm doing the reveal, let's get really close in there. And this could be interesting. So you can do a reveal, for example. Here's one character. By pulling out, I show that there's two characters, right? So those are those kinds of storytelling techniques where I'm on one, I can pull out and then show that there's two characters instead, right? So that's a really, really cool idea. So the next thing we have is, you know, camera, crane and jib shots. So crane and jib, I'm gonna bring in just a part to show like what it would look like. It's a really big piece of equipment. So we're like, how can we, you know, I wanted to figure out how can I demonstrate the same concepts, but without having a whole big crane or jib. So traditionally, a jib will be on some sort of a crane, and then, you know, the crane goes up and down, and there's like a jib arm, and you can like move around, right, and go like up and down. So that's that additional move. So we have, you know, the kind of X, Y, and then truly the Z of like the lateral swing and move, right? So that whole idea of the crane. How can we emulate a crane? And, you know, this was a question I was like, well, how, you know, what could we do that could work with that? So I came up with this kind of a solution, which is you can get monopods. So photography monopods can be really, you know, cost effective, $20. They come pre-threaded with the 1/8 inch thread, so that can go right into the bottom of something like the Blackmagic pocket camera. And let's just have a look at what that can be like. So I'm gonna just take this camera off. So this just has like a tripod plate. So I'm just gonna take that plate off. Again, same kind of thread setting. And that was the kind of the idea. What can we do to make that work as kind of a crane shot? And I was like, well, this could be a really simple way to do crane shots. Right, and we can, and again, it's a wider lens, so this will work quite nicely. I'm gonna just extend this a little bit longer, and let's cut to the. Let me just get right to the camera here. So here's the camera now. So I'm on this monopod, right? So now what I can do is, let's say if I want to, start from the top, and I want to like crane down into the characters. So this is what you would do typically with a crane shot. And I was like, well, look, this monopod, we can do it with, if we're on a wider lens. It's not too bad, right? So we're able to definitely, get kind of a, from the ceiling, coming down like that, right? So what a great way. So that's how we can quickly achieve. So I'm basically saying like, hey, why not use a monopod and then use it as a crane with your arms? And I can do a little bit of movement and a crane shot. Now what's key here is that we're on a 16mm lens, and that's really important. The 16mm lens versus like an 85 or 35 and so on. I'm not going to get as much. You can see that it's pretty smooth in a handheld mode, right? It's not too bouncy because it's wide. So wider lenses let us be handheld. So now this leads me to the next point, is we can do handheld shots in this manner. So handhelds, again, a very underused technique. It's not hard to do, and the monopod can really help us do a handheld shot by, we can basically use both our hands and we can do some really cool handheld shots that look pretty smooth. So, handheld we sometimes think of as being really jerky, but look at this handheld to me is kind of neat. I don't find it that unpleasant or jerky, or to be able to kind of move around. Look at, like, I can pan around, and that works really nicely. So the key with the handheld, again, is a wider lens, and then it's not, it won't be shaky. So now let's flip from the 16mm. Let's put on the 85. So I'm going to use the 85. So this telephoto lens, and this is going to give us a real good idea of why a telephoto lens will be a lot harder to use for a handheld shot, right? So now I got the 85, okay, and let's cut right to the camera. So here's the 85. So you can see, like, I'm holding this as steady as I can, but definitely the shot is not very steady. So now you're getting that real handheld look. So that's why I would always say use a 16mm or wider for handheld shots, because it's really hard to do handheld with a long 85mm telephoto lens. So this gives a really good comparison of why you wouldn't want to do something with the 85 and you'd want to use the 65, right? So that's that idea. Okay, so let's move along here. So what, the handheld traveling shots, you can be walking around with this monopod anywhere you wish to, and there's no really no limit to what you can do with a monopod or like a handheld camera. But again, my best practices here, if we're thinking about cinematography now, is a wider lens will provide better movement. It's like a better moving shot that's smoother, and where the handheld isn't as pronounced. Now, your whole objective in doing a handheld shot might be specifically to make it like a point of view, like, so it's like moving and it's a bit, like rockier or something like that. That could be your objective. But you can see again, if I'm just with the 16mm, I find this to be really pretty smooth, right? With the 16mm. But that's because it's wide. So that works really, really well for that. And then again, we can do like kind of pans and traveling shots. Again, the slider itself, this guy here, this was a lot nicer in terms of being smoother because of the rails, right? So we got the rails, and we got the slider idea there, right? But this, I'm finding is pretty nice in terms of working just with a handheld shot, and that's as simple as it can get. Again, I'm just on a monopod. You could just do it with the camera itself, but I find that just a monopod that literally you can buy, I've seen them for as little as $12 even. You can use kind of a monopod and move in and out. Now here's me just holding the camera. That's fine too. So not too bad of a shot either, right? So again, just a kind of best practice idea. I think sometimes that monopod can help a little bit to just give a little kind of bottom weight in terms of a stabilization idea, right? So just the monopod versus just holding it with the camera like that, right? Two kind of options there. Okay, so now what we're going to demonstrate is I'm just going to get the stabilizer going. So the stabilizer is interesting. So here's kind of our last thing: stabilizer and Steadicam movement. So the Steadicam came about in the 80s, and Rocky is probably like the first major film to use a Steadicam. Now that's the beginnings of freeing the camera from the rails, from large dollies. So this rail system that I just demonstrated isn't that big. It's fairly small, portable, it can work. Now imagine huge dollies, or before this kind of rail system, cameras were big, dollies are, could be hundreds of pounds, traveling on large tracks, a lot of work to establish it. So the camera wasn't really free. You could go handheld, and like I just showed, you could go handheld with a wider lens, but the use of the dollies and handheld, were limiting in different ways. So limiting in terms of lenses. With handheld, you couldn't go really on a longer lens. And then the dolly was limiting in terms of you had to build tracks. So think of the Steadicam revolution was all of a sudden, it was like a all-terrain vehicle. They could go on roads, it could go off-road, it can go anywhere where there wasn't a paved road or there wasn't a train track. So it's kind of like, the dollies in handheld were like a train track, or a limiting factor of a telescope where you can only use it in dark areas to see stars. So these kind of limiting factors were, we broke free of them with the Steadicam. So the Steadicam is usually, quite large. It's gimbal stabilized, analog, if you will. Now the stabilizers today, they're now brushless gimbals that can work with, that have motors. So instead of weights and things, you have motors that are constantly adjusting the stabilizer to make the image stable. So what exactly does this look like? So let's have a look at what it looks like. So I'm going to put the shot up here. So this is what a typical kind of stabilizer looks like now. And so these are the brushless gimbals, and they're motorized, and it's called a 3-axis. So stabilization, what's important is that it's stable on the pan, it's stable on the tilt, and right, so the yaw, I guess I would say. So this kind of the horizon line stable, and then it's stable on the tilt. This particular model is the Jinyun Crane 2, and it can hold a Blackmagic pocket cinema camera. There's smaller ones. You can get ones for iPhones and cameras like that, or even GoPros and things to help further stabilize them. But again, think about cameras and GoPros that they have a ability to use a wide lens. So again, I would say just go handheld and you don't really need the stabilizers. But let's say the stabilizer can allow us to be stable. We'll start with a 16mm lens on the camera, and then I'll go to an 85, and we'll see that we can keep the stability in the movement. So this is going to be our stabilizer demo, right? So what I'm going to do is I kind of know my presets. I'm just going to get this like preset up to put the camera on it. So I'm just going to get these stabilized, if you will, on the stabilizer. And I have some quick release plates, so I'm just going to get the camera right on here. Okay, so I've attached the camera, and now you can see it's kind of not perfectly balanced. So what I need to do is just get a little bit of balance on the where the camera is itself. So I'm just going to move it a little bit forward. And then I'm going to just get this out a little bit further on this bracket. Let's just start to get us. So you can see now it's somewhat stable without the motors engaging. So the last thing I want to do is probably just get this camera just a touch forward still. It's not too bad. And you can see now, without any motors engaged, it's staying somewhat level. And that's kind of the goal with these. Now, my HDMI cable that I'm showing you guys this with is not really great. You wouldn't typically have this cable because it's somewhat interfering. So the demo is going to have a little bit of cable interference. So now I'm simply going to just turn this on. And we'll see that now it kind of corrects itself, and now we are stabilized. And then what I can do is I can actually adjust, the angle of how far I want this to tilt, right? So now let's go here. I'm going to cut over to here's our camera now at work with the stabilizer. I'm just going to get the focus in here. So it's pretty smooth. And you can see, so this is working to counteract any kind of movements. But you can see it's good on the wide lens, but I would say it's not necessarily that different than the handheld. So, a good handheld shot is nothing to be afraid of doing, because I think there's still a lot of value in a good handheld shot. But this typically lets you, if I'm trying to jog, so now I'm trying to make it move by me like walking. And you can see what it's trying to do is it's going to try to keep it pretty smooth, as if you're floating. So this same system is like what you'll find on a drone. So it has that very similar type of system, right? So you can see how as I move it, and here, let's spin it around this way. So as I move it, you can see it's staying in place, and that's the stabilization. It keeps it smooth. It's not perfectly smooth, but it just keeps it smooth so that it doesn't get any interference from, see how I'm trying to like move it around? It's staying in the same spot relatively. It's just staying like this. As my body moves around, it's staying totally straight. So once again. You can see all the motors are slowly adjusting to make that work. So that's really cool. So now let's just go to, I'm just going to power this down. And let's put on that 85 millimeter lens to switch the demonstration to that now. And let's just have a comparison, like how well does the stabilizer handle the 85 millimeter that was tremendously shaky with the handheld. And technically, it should be a lot better with the stabilizer. Let's have a look now at what this will look like with the stabilizer. Okay, so I've put it on the stabilizer, and here we go. Let's cut to it right here. So that looks pretty good. So it's definitely less shaky. I'm holding it in the same way. It's pretty smooth. So you can see now I'm able to, really kind of move around, and it's definitely a lot better for these close-up moves with the 85. Again, the cables is kind of making it react a little bit. But look how much smoother that is. You're not getting all of that movement that we had before. So that's a really cool idea. So again, look at, here's the 85, right? So it's just working, and I can feel it working a little bit more just with the balancing of it. But it's a great way to get so here's the focus is definitely a bit harder as we go. Right, really smooth, relatively for that, right? So that's really the key with the stabilizer, and why we'd want to use a stabilizer for the wider lens. So let's just recap in some of the ideas here. So camera tripod movement. Again, I really urge you guys to go and consider practicing pan and tilt movements. So in terms of best practice, I always say to wind up, counter wind up. So start your pan and start your pan in the finish position, then wind yourself up in the direction that you want to end up in, or that you want to start in. So I always say, like, first position is where you'd start, and second position is your ending. So make yourself comfortable in the second position, not the first position. Then wind backwards to your first position, and that's the key in having a smooth pan or tilt, is you're basically unwinding your body to the first position, to the second position from the first position. So imagine yourself, if I want to end up here, okay, with a pan, and I want to start over here. So I'm going to wind myself like this. My feet are pointing in the direction I'm going to end up, and then I'm going to pan to the comfortable spot. So you're going from uncomfortable to comfortable for pan and tilt. That's really a great way to think of how to do those really well. So all of this kind of camera movement starts with a pan and tilt. Practice that, take out a tripod with the video head at one of our partner libraries. Even if you have your own camera you want to use, that's fine, but take it out, check it out, try out pan and tilts. That's where we start. Then we did a dolly or tracking shot. So we used the pipe. So in this case, right, we had the pipe set up here. We had our dolly, right, that we can go backwards and forwards. And then we had a video head, so we could do the triple combo, the triple threat, pan, tilt, and a dolly move together. So we can do different shots like that. So that was really great. So dolly or tracking shots, or feel free to use something like skateboards, DIY stuff, pieces of wood, inline skates, skateboard wheels on a tabletop. You can make dolly shots really easily for very little cost. You can spend $20 and get a skateboard dolly, do your dolly shots. So that's fantastic. Okay, so then crane or jib movement. So, rather than showing, okay, here's a $800 crane or jib, that's expensive, and you can rent them, and they're great to rent and do that. But if you use a wider lens, you can use something like a monopod, and then you can do the crane or jib movements. And we achieved that by doing something with just a monopod. Never underestimate the handheld shot. So if we stay wider, I would say 16 millimeter, 24 millimeter, probably even maybe the 35 millimeter wouldn't be too bad, but 16 millimeter or wider, you can definitely get really great handheld shots. And I thought it looked almost as good as when we went to the stabilizer. So the Steadicam and now the stabilizer. So Steadicam, kind of the predecessor, the analog, weight-based gimbals. The stabilizer, which is a brushless gimbal system based on what you find on most drones or UAVs, like a DJI type ones. The stabilizer is a handheld camera stabilizer unit, and we're able to then stabilize and make really smooth shots. So there, once I put the 85 millimeter, it was very smooth, and it was, it worked quite well in terms of a shot to do that way. So that's really fantastic. So I was really pleased with how that could work. So yeah, so that's basically the ideas of camera movement. So those are our main types, and again, we can replicate these in a very effective DIY type situation with monopods, the skateboard dolly, things like this, using our dolly that we had on here, right? So a really great way to make everything work. We can use a monopod. They can be, very, very cheap to purchase, 20 bucks or so. Put the camera on there, wider lenses, and go from there. So it's really about practicing. So I hope you can take these 4 sessions, practice some of these techniques. Everything is, what you can access through the library, low cost, DIY, even found materials. You have an old skateboard around, you can use that. And you can start to think about some of these camera movements. Handheld, just taking the camera, handheld with a wide lens, you can get beautiful shots that way. And I think we sometimes hesitate to use that. So I just want to show how the 16 millimeter handheld and the stabilizer were pretty similar. Is it really worth getting the stabilizer with that? It is for a longer lens, as we saw, right? So that's where it gets handier. Stabilizers can be not that expensive for smaller cameras. You can buy them for $200-300 now. They're not too expensive of an item if you're looking at getting something like that. You can also find analog Steadicam units that are half the price, about $100 or so, and some weight ones. Now I find the analog cheaper ones, smaller ones, aren't as good as going handheld. So I would go with a wide lens and handheld if that's the case. So yeah, that's definitely it. So thanks again for joining us. You can rewatch all 4 of these sessions. If you have any questions, tom@tbmcs.ca. Just send me an email about cinematography equipment through the libraries, any kind of questions about cinematography. We will have another session in video production or film and video production in August. We have some post-production ones coming up in editing, so you can continue that journey with us in July as well. So don't forget to sign up for more workshops that are coming up, and we will see you there. So it's really been great. Please rewatch these and send me any questions or notes you may have. So just want to again thank all our partners in making this project happen: Canada Council for the Arts and our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you guys in the next workshops. Take care.